Hey YouTube, welcome back. For this film appreciation video, I'm going to talk about, it's a pretty recent film. This film just came out last year, 2019. Ignore IMDb where they say it's a 2018 film. It was completed in 2018, but it didn't start screening festivals until 2019. And the general public sure as heck didn't get to see it till 2019. So it's a 2019 film. And that is Larry Fessenden's Depraved. This was actually one of, if not my absolute favorite film from last year. I did a podcast episode on the Taiku podcast that I co-host regularly. Every year we do our favorite films of the year, and I put this at my number 2. But as I was speaking during the podcast episode, I was like, this really feels like it should be my number 1. But I went with another film as my number 1 because it felt to me like it was the better film, or I don't know. But Depraved, I've seen it 4 times since it came out in September of 2019 on VOD. And it just gets better with every screening. And the more I think about it, the more I genuinely, truly admire what Larry Fessenden did. Real quick word about Larry Fessenden, who he is. He is the founder of Glass Eye Pix, which they do a ton of work in as a production company in the underground horror genre. They gave Ty West his first film with The Roost. Ty West later went on to direct the justfully lauded House of the Devil and The Innkeepers. Those are 2 of the best horror movies of the turn of the decade. He later went on to do The Sacrament, which was basically a Jonestown film, and In the Valley of Violence. I'm still waiting for more films from Ty West. To more recent fare, like a bunch of films that are currently streaming on Shudder, like Me, The Ranger. He has his hands in these films. He is basically the mentor of up-and-coming horror auteur Mickey Keaton, whose films so far include Darling, Carnage Park, and Psychopaths. I just recently watched Psychopaths, and I think that's his best one yet. I really like Mickey Keaton's films. And so Larry Fessenden created Glass Eye Pix back in the 80s as a production company for him to work on his own stuff. He's actually a really big inspiration for me. That's why I created the Cups of Night Films business. You know, it's a production company. It's legit. It's official, because I want to use this venue to create my own art and to help other local filmmakers create their art. I mean, that's what it's all about for me. I love regional films from the 70s, all these really weird and bizarre films that I'm sure I'll talk about later that were made in some random state by a random cast and a random director. That it's purely independent regional filmmaking. And I really want to bring that back in any way I can. Larry Fessenden with Glass Eye Pix is focused out of New York, so a lot of his movies and a lot of the films from Glass Eye Pix are filmed in New York. That's just how it works. I first heard of Larry Fessenden 2012 or 2013, I can't remember, when Scream Factory put out his newest film at the time, Beneath. I hated that movie. I really disliked it in almost every measure. I'm sorry, Larry, if you're watching this. It just really didn't work for me. So a few years later, I think it was 2015 or 16, Scream Factory put out this box set, the Larry Fessenden collection. And it was supposedly all of Larry Fessenden's other films. I said, no way, Jose. I disliked Beneath so much that I was just not interested in the other films by him. After For a few years after that, I had learned who Larry Fessenden was and had seen him popping up in a bunch of movies because I was starting to really dig into these more ultra low budget modern films. I had seen him a bunch of times before, but I think it was when I watched Mickey Keaton's Carnage Park. I was like, oh shit, that's Larry Fessenden. I had now gotten to the point where I recognized his face and knew who he was. And in all these movies where he plays a character actor, he's always been really delightful. In 2019, also, he had a small role in Jim Jarmusch's The Dead Don't Die, which is a movie a lot of people didn't like, but I really enjoyed. I thought The Dead Don't Die was extremely funny. Jim Jarmusch is a great director, and that's just that's a kind of humor that really struck me. And Larry Fessenden's role is fantastic. So through the lead up of 2019, when Depraved hit festivals, it started getting a lot of acclaim, a lot of positive press from independent horror websites that I like to read. And so I said, okay, fine. Just the previous year, I think it was October of 2018, I had bought that Larry Fessenden collection because it had been out for a few years and the Scream Factory had it for super cheap. It was during their Screamtober or whatever they call it sale. It was really cheap. So I picked it up and I was hearing about Depraved and I was like, okay, I'm going to take the time and watch his movies. Larry Fessenden is now one of my favorite directors of all time. He's incredible. His first full-length feature, No Telling, is this incredible Frankenstein film about animal rights. His films are very politically aware. He is a very political director. He infuses tons of politics and ideas into his films. His later films that some people might be more aware of, he did Wendigo in 2001 or 2002, starring Dewey from Malcolm in the Middle. That is another really great film, and I was just taken back by it's so obviously ultra low budget, but he doesn't let that get in the way of making the best film he can. And when you watch his films, they don't feel like they were made for $5. He squeezes every ounce of creativity and structures his films and crafts his stories around the low budget so it feels organic and natural. His 2006 film, The Last Winter, is this crazy climate change film starring Ron Perlman. That was fantastic. But the film from him that floored me was his 1997 film, Habit. Habit is a vampire film, but maybe it is a vampire film, maybe it's not a vampire film. It follows a very good tradition of vampire films as social commentary, like Abel Ferrara's The Addiction. Ganja and Hess, I recently watched, is very much along those lines, and Jean Rollins' Two Orphan Vampires. Anyway, Habit is fantastic. Is it vampires? Is it not? It doesn't matter because it's this deep dive into cycles of abuse. Like it's this very introspective film, and I think it's one of the greatest horror films of the 90s. Right up there is one of the best vampire films of all time. Alcoholism, just it's a tremendous film. Maybe I'll talk about that another time. I really wanted to do like a whole visual video essay about Fessenden's early films, but the weight of the undertaking kind of crumbled beneath me. But I watched these movies and I completely and utterly fell in love with his work, his craft, his visual style, the stories, the everything about it. And then I rewatched Beneath again, which he did not write. All of these other films he wrote, but Beneath he didn't write. He was helping a friend of his who had written the script to just finally get this movie made so that this friend who wrote this film could have his movie made. I watched it again. I liked it a little bit better than I did the first time, but I still that movie just doesn't work for me. Depraved is written by Larry Fessenden, so immediately my expectations and my hopes were just through the roof. And such a powerful film. Depraved it's a modern Frankenstein story, and it's, in my opinion, the best modern reimagining of the Frankenstein story that I can recall. It's about an Iraq War veteran who is suffering from PTSD, and his focus in life now is to try and save people. Every doctor wants to save that, but he wants to take it to the next step. He tried to give someone their arm back that after it had been blown off in the war, and he becomes obsessed with the reanimation of limbs and ultimately the reanimation of life. He wants to do this to save people, and he ends up creating a Frankenstein's monster, if you will, who he names Adam, not for the reasons you're thinking. And that's one of the subtle little brilliant touches in the film. And Adam is played by New York theater performer Alex Bro. He is this tall, lanky dude who has this way with facial expressions. It's keyed in so perfectly. He captures the sense of emptiness that Adam has. Everything is new.
Gravity. What? Gravity is your friend.
The crux behind this whole film is this sense of fatherhood. After creating Adam, the doctor tries to teach him and get him to learn. And there's all these sequences where he's building puzzles, being read to, listening to Mozart. And it's all about fatherhood. And you're watching Adam grow up from birth to adulthood in a very accelerated fashion. Everything about it just feels so beautiful. There's these neat little visual camera effects that were done in post-production to illustrate how Adam is learning. So everything that the film focuses on, electricity this, electricity that. All our brain is just electrical circuits. So when he's listening to Mozart, there's this beautiful sequence where lights of electricity are flowing all around him. And it's just a terrific visualization for it.
Here we go. Close your eyes. That's it.
We get to experience him going through these various phases. One of my favorite sequences in the film is when Polidori, who is this big pharma jackass, evil motherfucker who has been funding Henry, the doctor's experiments, and it all rests on this drug that he's been developing that the company he works for says, forget about that drug, it's not worth it, but he won't let it go. He basically takes Adam away from the loft where he was created and has lived, and takes him into the city.
Do you think we should be filling this one with something worthwhile?
I don't like it when the sun's in my eyes. I don't like putting on new clothes.
I'm back by 6 before dark.
I don't like
You're so
it when it's
cute.
too cold
Depraved.
outside.
Maybe so. I'm gonna let go sometime. Come on, Adam. It's gonna
When
be
I
fun.
feel the
Coat looks good on you. Don't worry.
Come on. Let's take a selfie.
And I don't like
Why so
those
serious?
long car rides.
Welcome to Manhattan, Adam.
Don't you know I'd rather be at home? And I don't like it when there's tears in my eyes. But I never mind when I feel the wind blow.
And the film is filled with little moments like this when he meets Addison Tomlinson. She was the lead actress in Like Me, which I really liked that film. She plays this young woman who goes to a bar every night after work, but not because she's, a lush or anything. She just is a kind, gentle person. And the film challenges our perspective, what society tells us, oh, this woman, she goes to a bar every night and gets drunk. Society tells us to think certain things, and everything about her role denies that.
So you're gonna tell me what happened to you? You don't have to answer that, but I really want you to.
You have a tattoo. I have a tattoo.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, I've got a lot of tattoos, but you're not gonna see them all tonight.
I got this tattoo.
Wow. Wait, what is that? That's, Codicius, right? It means, like, rebirth?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
Oh, come on, you don't know what it means.
No.
And it leads to the tragic catalyst of the film. And you can see in Alex Bro's face this torment, this confusion, this wonder. He's learning, he's growing. And that's where the film really takes its hold for me. Larry Fessenden originally wrote the film in 2003 about the Iraq war that had just started. And his whole goal in the film was to talk about fatherhood. But since it didn't get made till 2018 and released in 2019, it kind of takes on its own life. And that's what I really appreciate about not just this film, but all film, that the whole concept of death of the author, where an individual's personal interpretation and perspectives are injected into a film, and it can twist and shape and mold the film in ways that the filmmaker originally did not intend. And that doesn't mean that the person putting themselves into a film is wrong, or that they're stupid or interpreting the film wrong. That's the whole concept of death of an author, is you're putting yourself into this work of art, and how that work of art transfers to you is valid. Knowing the true purpose behind an artist's intent can change things, but it doesn't mean that your personal interpretation is invalid. And what I pulled from this was basically, it's the film for millennials. It spoke so deeply to me about the millennial generation, which I am a member of. Millennials are almost 40. I was born in 82. I'm the year after the generation first started. We're almost 40, guys. We're not kids. We're not teenagers doing stupid stuff. Stop blaming us. But we have found ourselves in this world that we do not find in ourselves and in our world the opportunity that we were told we would have. The previous generations, the boomer generation especially, has created this world that is so driven on greed and profit returns that we find ourselves trying and grasping. It is to the millennial generation that the gig economy got forced upon us. We don't want to work for 1 or 2 days and get paid a couple $100 and then try to find another job. It's awful. And it's really hard to sustain, but that's the reality of a lot of people now in the year 2020. A lot of people are part of this gig economy where you're just freelancing and taking job to job. And the way that I interpret this film is that we are not evil. We're not bad people. We are trying. We're really, really trying. And this is where Fessenden's themes on fatherhood really come into play, is we can only do our best with how we were taught. And we will fail, we will screw up, and we will try. And the best we can do is to teach the next generation our lessons learned, instead of making things worse and worse and worse for generations afterwards. We can slowly, incrementally make things better, and hopefully, as the years go by, things will improve. And we find ourselves in this crux between we really entered the workforce right around the 2008 recession. We've never really had en masse gigantic prosperity. I've been lucky. I had a really great job, but it didn't make me happy. And so I'm trying to find my real purpose in life. But a lot of people, they never got that opportunity that I had. And that's how I see this film. This film really asks us to empathize with Adam. And even though evil acts filter into the end of the story, because it follows the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein almost to the letter, just in a totally different setting and context. Even though these things happen, it doesn't mean that Adam is evil. It doesn't mean that he is a failed creation. It doesn't mean that he is wrong. He has done wrong, but he is trying with the tools he was given, and he's going to continue trying to do better. That's where the film really takes its hold on me. There's this whole sequence where he's running from the police, and there's this beautiful monologue that I'm just going to share with you.
But I will hide and disappear and learn not to care. This is what they have taught me.
Come on, we got this, motherfucker! Don't let him get away! Stop! Stop or we'll fire!
That whole monologue it's perfect in my eyes. And you saw it, you watched it just now, and the way that it's shot, the dogs, the bare trees running by, the slow motion, Adam standing by himself, singular and alone in front of this vast world that's unknown to him. And he looks back, and he's moving forward into the unknown. And that's not particularly a generational concept or sentiment. Every generation has these feelings. Every human being has these feelings. It's just me being a millennial, me being me in the year 2020. I put that into the film and I got that out of it. And that made it a very personal film for me. And I cry like a baby at the end of the film. The last few minutes, I won't spoil all of that because I really want people to watch this film. But it's just tremendous. And it's a film that most people didn't pay attention to. Why? Because it came out on VOD. It wasn't released in theaters. And a lot of people still have this negative stigma that if it's not released in a movie theater, it must be a bad movie. And I hate that stigma with all my soul. If you listen to the other Best of the Year podcasts on the Taiku podcast, almost every year I'm coming up with movies that I'm saying, yes, no, these are among my absolute favorite of the year. And they were low budget, released on VOD, just silently, quietly, just brought into the world. And there's a lot of great stuff that's being made, that's being put out there that is not getting the attention it deserves. And Depraved is one of them. Absolutely hope that more people seek it out. It is streaming on Hulu for free. And I'm pretty sure you can get it other places. The Blu-ray's really cheap. So yeah, thank you, Larry Fessenden, for this movie. This movie is a gift.
And knowing's more than enough. It's more than enough. It's more than enough. It's more than enough. It's more. It's more than enough. It's more than enough. It's more than enough. It's more than enough.
Thank you guys again for another film appreciation. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope you take the time to check this one out. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and ding the bell, and I'll talk to you next time.